Alright, hey guys, today we're going to be making white bread. We'll start off our bread basics videos. We're going to start off with 750 grams of flour, 8 grams of salt, 465 grams of warm water, 40 grams of butter, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of quick rise yeast. I'll put all the ingredients in the description. So we're going to start with our teaspoon of sugar. We're going to put that into our warm water, followed by our 2 teaspoons of quick rise yeast. Then we're going to give it a quick little stir. When it comes to yeast, what you're looking for to make sure that it's alive and working and active is you're looking for the frothiness. So once we add the yeast, to give it a little stir, we're going to give it about 5-10 minutes to let it work its magic, right? So the warm water will help activate it, and then the sugar will feed the yeast once it's activated. Alright, now that we've let our yeast sit for about 5 minutes, we're going to go ahead and add that to our mixing bowl, followed by our flour and our salt. Alright, and we're going to start our stand mixer off at power 1, just so we can get the flour and water incorporated together. As you can see, our dough's starting to take shape, starting to form. So it looks a little dry, so we're going to go ahead and add our butter now. We're going to let that go for about another 5 minutes or so. Every once in a while you want to touch your bread, feel it. If it's too moist, add some flour. If it's too dry, add some water. Right, things like that. For me, it's a good feeling. I like it. It's not too dry. It's not too wet. A good indication that it's kind of done its time in the KitchenAid mixers when you pull it off the dough hook and it kind of just comes off perfectly. There's not really much residue left on the dough hook. That's kind of when you know your dough is well put together. Alright, so we're going to flour our surface. And we're going to go ahead and hand knead our dough for about 5-10 minutes so it becomes smooth. Right, and if it's a little too sticky, this flour on the board will help become less sticky. Right, it's just that extra little bit to make it just right. So the kneading process, what it does is you're developing the gluten strands in the flour, which is what makes your bread stable. Alright, so now we're going to be doing the folding technique. We're just going to fold the dough in on itself, creating tension for the rising process. Right, so now we've made our little dough ball. We're going to grab our proofing bowl. We're just going to add some oil to it. I'm going to use olive oil in my bowl to prevent our dough from sticking to it. So we're just going to go ahead and add some oil. Now we're also going to do some olive oil on top of the dough as well, because if you don't, then a film forms and kind of affects our end product, and we don't want that. So we're just going to put some olive oil on the top and then cover it with saran wrap. I like to leave it near a window so that the sun hits it, creating moisture in the bowl, humidity, which helps the bread rise. And I also like to keep the house at about 70 degrees. Again, just for rising purposes. So now we're going to take our dough, cut it into 2 halves. I kind of messed up with my calculations here. One loaf's a little bit bigger than the other, but it doesn't really matter. Now in my next bread video, I'm going to take the same recipe and just show you different ways you can make it into like sandwich buns, hot dog buns, hamburger buns. It's a very nice bread recipe. It's very versatile. You can use it in so many different ways. So they're about 20 gram difference between the 2 loaves, but end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So again, we're just going to do the balling technique here, creating tension. And we're going to let them sit for about 5 minutes before we go ahead and shape them into our loaves. Alright, so now we'll let it sit for 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and flatten it. Try to get rid of any air bubbles in the dough because that'll affect the end product. Like little air pockets in the inside the loaf, it just doesn't really look nice. So again, we're going to start rolling it into itself, pulling it tight, creating tension. And then right when we get to this part, we're going to tuck in the ends. Same thing, and start rolling it. And as you see with my fingers, I'm like pushing it in on itself while rolling it. That's something we want to do because it creates the seam. We want the seam on the bottom, and it creates a lot of tension, which is what you want. So again, we're just going to do it with our second loaf. I believe this one's the bigger one. So again, we're just going to roll on it on itself, pulling with our fingers, creating tension. Seam on the bottom, plop down. We're going to grab our loaf pans now, oil them up. Now you can do it with either olive oil or butter, just all depends, really your personal preference. This time I used olive oil. Alright, so we're going to get the loaves into the pans, and then we're going to cover it again with saran wrap and let it rise again for about another hour or so. Same concept, in front of the window, let the sun create the humidity, which will then allow your bread to rise quicker and kind of better as well. Right, okay, so now it's the baking time, right, where the magic happens. So I like to go 375 for about 40 minutes. That to me seems to be the perfect amount of time for this recipe and this size of loaves that we're making. Right, obviously the bigger the loaf, the more time you have to cook for. Alright, so now the 40 minutes is up. We're going to take the bread out. That's kind of what we're looking for, right? The nice golden brown tops. We're going to take them out of the loaf pans, let them cool for about an hour before we go ahead and cut. And the bottom of that loaf looks real nice as well. Because the olive oil, it's going to give it a nice little crunch at the bottom. It's kind of my favorite part of the bread. That's the end product. Hope you guys enjoy.